Hi there, welcome to a new video series that I'm creating called Character Cuts. This is mainly aimed at my GCSE film and A-level film students, where I will be going through characters from films that we're studying or will study and giving a breakdown of that character and how they link to not only the specification, but just in general what the character is like and some interesting revision methods for you. One thing I would say is this is perfectly acceptable if you just want to watch this video out of interest, but the content I'll be talking about is mainly geared towards those doing EDQUAS film studies. So enjoy. The first episode is going to be about Combo, which is a character in This Is England. Now, Combo is a very divisive character, primarily because of the series that came after This Is England. Because he sort of has, in some people's eyes, a redemption arc and sort of becomes something different by the end of the series. But we'll be talking about him in terms of the film and what a polarizing and divisive character he is. So let's get into some ideas. First of all, Combo is deeply racist. He represents the radical movement within the skinhead movement that spawned due to the National Front and right-wing ideology in the UK at the time. Now, during the 1980s, it was obviously a very tumultuous time. Margaret Thatcher was in power, which was divisive for a lot of people, but also policies were being thrown around that were a bit more anti-immigration, were a bit against the other, quote unquote, in British society. Combo is representative of the working class skinheads who got wrapped up in nationalist ideology due to the changing times. They started to blame those who were different for all of their issues. And this was skewed, obviously, by the politics of the time. They needed a scapegoat, and the scapegoat was people who came over and made lives for themselves in Great Britain and were ridiculed and attacked because of it. Now, the skinhead movement wasn't deeply racist on its inception. In fact, it was completely the other way. You had people combining music tastes from different generations, finally having an identity that they could fully achieve. You could go out and buy the clothes to be in a skinhead gang very easily. And they were often quite accepting and multicultural gangs. However, with the advent of the right wing and how it started to take shape in the 70s and 80s in Great Britain, you found that the National Front started to creep into these working class communities because they targeted and went after people who were working class, poorer people who were suffering under the conservative policies at the time and needed somebody to blame, as I mentioned earlier. Because of that, a lot of people find some measure of sympathy with the character of Combo because they see that this is a man who has been wrapped up by an ideology that he doesn't really fully understand. On the other hand, his actions in the film, with his attacks on Milky towards the end, his violent attack on Mr. Sandhu, and his robbery of his shop, and his flagrant use of racial slurs show him to be quite an evil character. But that leads me on to my next point, which is that he is a representation of traditional toxic masculinity. So when we see him in the film, he is often ready to fight. He's got his braces down quite often. He looks like he's ready to start anything at any time. And he's almost looking for a reason for somebody to provoke him. Whether it's Woody not saying the right thing, or whether it's someone he perceives as disrespecting him, or even if it's somebody that looks different to him. He's a representation of that toxic masculinity. Now, if we're looking at this through a feminist lens, and we're looking at This Is England through a feminist lens, female representation is there through characters such as Lol, who has this very strong feminine persona, but almost masculine in the way she does it. Combo is the very antithesis of feminism, I suppose. His attitude and his arrogance and his violence show him to be true masculine in the film. Well, at least his interpretation of true masculinity. And that rubs off on a lot of the characters in the film, such as Sean, who lacks that male figure. But rather than having a positive male figure like he might have had from his father, who was a soldier and obviously quite well adjusted, he instead gets this surrogate father in the form of a racist, hypermasculine man. So that's something to think about when you're looking at representation and looking at ideology. Feminist ideology would have great difficulty accepting a character like Combo because he himself is the personification of everything that is wrong with masculinity. Violence, racism, flagrant disregard for people's feelings, those things are at odds with that ideology. We also see him as a binary opposite to Woody. So if you're thinking of narrative, he is also a skinhead, the same as Woody. But whereas Woody has this sort of calm, multicultural, positive vibe surrounding him, Combo doesn't have that. However, he does command authority, not through his positivity and his actions, just like Woody would, but he gets it through fear. He makes those amongst him fear him. He doesn't necessarily have that fear from Sean because Sean idolizes him. He sees him as this positive male role model that he's been lacking in his life. And as I said earlier, a surrogate father. But that leads me on to the final point for this character cut. He's a disruptive force, not only to the characters in the film, but also to us as observers. If we look at Todorov's theory, he is the disruption of the equilibrium. The equilibrium being Woody's gang being harmonious with each other and helping Sean through a difficult time of him being bullied and being without a father. And they give him an outlet that he so desperately needs. But Combo is that disruptive force in our narrative. He destroys the equilibrium and creates his own new world where toxic masculinity reigns, and he is able to encourage right-wing nationalist ideology by taking them to rallies, by teaching them to be racist, and taking Sean from an innocent lad and involving him in a situation and an ideology that he doesn't fully understand. I hope that character cut has been useful for you. I try to keep these videos nice and short because I know we don't have a lot of time and we don't want to sit through a 50-minute video. But if you liked the video, please send a message or send a comment and let me know that you've enjoyed it, or that if it was useful for your revision, please let me know as well. It's been very useful seeing all of the support on the channel, so thank you for that. Until next time, see you soon.